Hi everyone, quick intro to the video today. So apologies first for the sound quality. I didn't have my mic on and yeah, some of the sound's a bit dodgy, but I've talked over the bits which are too loud because it was raining and there was road noise. This is one method of training loose lead. There are other ways of doing it. Don't really want to get into a debate about tools people use and halties and all that stuff. This is my preferred method. I think it gets your dog engaged with you, and that has other benefits other than just the dog walking nicely next to you. I think you see a lot of dogs that are too distracted with their environments, and those are often reactive dogs, or dogs that get themselves into trouble. So I think there's some benefit to getting check-ins and eye contact from your dog, but also it just means that you can get them walking nicely next to you without needing to use any other tools or anything. Hope it's helpful. This is me training Stanley, who's a little I think he's 8 months or 9 months old. It is in portrait mode, and that's my fault because I didn't tell my camera woman that it needs to be in landscape, so apologies, it doesn't look the best, but hopefully it'll give you some tips on training your own dog. Any questions, put them in the comments, and yeah, I hope you enjoy. Cheers.
Extendable lead, you're teaching him to pull. So like you said, he's a hunting dog. He'll use his nose and he'll pull in a direction, and this reinforces pulling because every time he pulls, he can move forward, which is kind of like what he's trying to do. So we've got that one, which is saying, yes, pull me. You can go. You can do whatever you want. And he's obviously a pup, so he's exploring. And then you've got your slip lead here, which is going to be basically saying, don't pull, otherwise you're going to get choked.
Yeah.
And obviously you mentioned like prong collars and stuff. It's the same kind of premise. Focusing on like what we don't want him to do and less on what we do want him to do. And what we kind of want to think about when we're training him is like creating optimism. So like training for him is really stimulating. It will like any training you do with him, even when you've done like the puppy classes, stimulates their brain. But also it makes them think that there's opportunities to like earn reward and learn, and that's different to being told no all the time.
Yeah.
So loose lead walking is exactly the same. It's just an opportunity for him to earn reward, and he hasn't kind of twigged that yet because the outside environment is more interesting than you are and what we are. But we can kind of change it up a little bit so that he sees us as a little bit more interesting. The other thing is he walks faster than you do.
Yeah.
So we are actually asking him to do something a little bit unnatural because we're asking him to walk at our pace, which he wouldn't do if he was off lead. So we are asking for a behaviour essentially. We're just going to start with a little bit of like eye contact. So basically loose lead walking is kind of eye contact on the move, on the floor. And when he's finished that, he's going to look back up at me. Yes, good boy. And I'm just going to mark it. So you always mark the behaviour.
Yeah.
And whenever you say, yes, good boy, it means that behaviour, then that marker word means you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
So you don't ever use it unless he's going to get paid. Yes, good boy. And all I'm after here is just him looking at me. Yes, good boy. So if I had to treat my hand, I shouldn't have had. But you see, he was looking at my hands before. Now he's looking by it. Now he looks at me. Yes, good boy.
Yeah, I did find that sometimes if you like have them in your hand ready to go.
Yeah, because it becomes a bribe rather than a reward. So what we want is basically for him to do a behaviour, and then the consequence is a reward rather than sort of luring him and bribing him into positions, because then he's only ever going to do it if you've got food with you. And then another one you can do. So that was literally just putting on the floor and then just rewarding when he looks back up. So we're getting that eye contact. And you can kind of do these as warm-ups before you go out and walk, which just sounds a bit faffy. But if you spend a couple of minutes just going like, right, you're going to engage with me, he's already thinking, right, we're doing that game.
Yeah, I have found that with certain things that he feels like he's in training mode.
He just so. Yes, good boy. So I'm just waiting for him to give me eye contact. So he knows the food's in there because he can smell it. Yes, good boy. And he's just learning that it doesn't matter how much sniffing, and he's not. I mean, some dogs you train, they'll like scratch the hell out of your hand. It's a one way of training them to give you a paw. But he's just going to learn what works. There we go. Yes, good boy, give you a look. Keep it all in your hand, and then you treat him out of that one. And just like, if you try the hand and just wait for him to give you a bit of eye contact, even if he just sort of looks at your chest or neck, you can reward that. And you just mark it.
Yes, good boy.
Yeah, that was really good. So he sort of stops the sniffing and stuff, and then just gives you.
Yes, good boy.
Didn't even bother. Wait for him to give it to you. Just move your hand a little bit soon.
Yes, good boy.
Okay, so I'm going to start doing a bit of a voiceover here because the sound, as I said, is not great. This is kind of what a typical walk with Stanley looks like. So we've given him a couple of minutes to familiarise himself with the garden, and this is kind of what he would do on a normal walk outside. So kind of lots of sniffing, lots of pulling his owner around. Not very engaged. You can see he's kind of looking at everything but Steve, his owner. So that's kind of where we start. So I'm just talking to Steve about his handling and where he kind of wants everything. Now this is ultimately down to personal preference, but I like the treat pouch behind you slightly and on the side that you want the dog to walk, which can be whatever your personal preference is, it really doesn't matter, and then the lead in the opposite hand. That way you've got a loose lead with, so in Steve's case, his right hand, and then the left hand can reward Stanley in the right position, because we want to make sure that we're rewarding him in the position that we want, so there's no confusion there as to exactly what we're after, just clearly communicating to the dog what we want and reinforcing that to kind of create that reinforcement history, and therefore he's more likely to repeat the behaviour. So that's what we're sort of talking about here, and just talking through that. As you can see, Stanley's still very disengaged at the moment, not kind of that interested in walking on the lead at all. He's just sniffing. So at this point it could be quite easy, and I could see how people at home would get kind of frustrated with the dog because he's not really engaged in what we're doing. Instead, what we opted to do was to try and do some of the engagement games that we'd done inside with him outside. So we're obviously moved to a more distracting environment. As I said, it is quite noisy out there. There's lots of smells. It's not his gardens. There's lots of smells that he's not used to. So what we're doing here is basically the game we started with, which is we're putting a treat on the floor. He's sniffing it out, finding it, and naturally he's looking back up at Steve, his owner, to ask for the next one, and that is just encouraging him to get eye contact. So we gave Stan a little break here, just let him sniff around, and he actually offered Steve eye contact, so we marked and rewarded that, and then he did it again, so we marked and rewarded it again. From there we're going to start playing the game. So now if you watch me, I make myself look like an idiot, which I think is a prerequisite for dog training, but essentially what I'm saying is over time he's going to get used to just popping that head back up like he did there, and then asking for another treat, and we're going to give it to him because we're going to mark that yes, you looked at me, that's what I wanted, and then we're going to reward, but we're going to reward on the floor because this head goes down but it has to pop back up. So that's why we're doing it this way. And as you can kind of see, and I've trimmed a lot of the video out because it would have just been boring watching for you, but he was out here for quite a while, just sniffing, disengaged, pulling everywhere. We've now got him back to at least paying attention to us, which is kind of the breakthrough we needed a little bit, so we could then move on to doing some actual walking, because we're 10 minutes into the video and we haven't actually walked anywhere really with him yet. So that was just getting him back engaged. The environment, you might need to do this in different environments to begin with. You won't have to do it forever, but just to start with, it's worth just taking a bit of time, letting them get acquainted with the environment so it's less distracting and they're comfortable, and then move into training when you're confident that you can get engagement from your dog. So now we're going to intro some movement. So Steve wants Stanley on his left side, so it's not perfect to start with, but it is progress, and progress doesn't have to be perfect straight away. Stanley offers eye contact there, so I just ask Steve to mark and reward it, and then we can try and get him back on our left side. And what we're trying to encourage is if the lead goes tight, that means we're going to change direction. So it's a bit of a this way rather than, I don't want your dog getting used to having a tight lead, because they will get used to it. And you see dogs who are continual pullers on leads because they habituate to having the feeling of a tight lead. The tight lead needs to feel like, oh, I need to look back at you because I need to see where we're going. I want your dog to be very aware of the different feelings of a loose lead versus a tight lead. And that comes from practice and just time spent walking together and being very clear with what the two things mean. So tight lead means change direction, loose lead means we're walking in this direction and you're walking nicely next to me. So at the moment we're just moving around the garden and just trying to grab some eye contact from him on the move. So it's not perfect. One thing you can do in these circumstances is if your dog is not engaging the same way, you can, when you get a loose lead, you can walk backwards, and then that way you're going to have a loose lead because the dog is essentially walking towards you and you're holding the lead, so the lead will be loose, and then again you just mark and reward the eye contact when they look up at you, which they will if you're walking backwards. So you can always do that if you're struggling to get any engagement. The way Stanley walks in front of Steve there, that's one of the pitfalls of treating in front of you. So you need to try and treat down to your side, because otherwise the dog will walk in front of you. So treat in the position that you want to reward, and then the dog won't walk in front of you like that, because they know that the reward never comes in front of you. It is always down by your side. Like I say, we're just trying to make progress here. We're not obedience ring ready yet. We're just trying to get him eye contact, walking next to, and you can already see, compared to the dragging around that we had earlier in the video, we're now making progress, and Stanley's kind of getting the game of, if I look at you when I'm walking, I get a reward. I think one thing people tend to think with this type of training is, yeah, but I don't want to be rewarding my dog every 5 steps for the rest of their life. But ultimately this is training, so we're embedding a behaviour. You won't be doing that for the rest of the dog's life. Stanley spotted something there. You won't be doing this for the rest of the dog's life. It's going to become a habit. It's going to become the way that we do things. But we are asking the dog to walk slower than physically they would normally, because they walk quicker than we do. So we're asking something of them. So it's right that we embed the behaviour, reward the behaviour, and like I say, you start off with, and we're rewarding very regularly here. Eventually you'll reward every 20 steps, every 100 steps, every 1,000 steps, and then you won't need to reward anymore because they're just used to walking next to you. By the time you sort of think about, I can't remember how many steps I've done, your dog's probably already walking next to you absolutely fine, and you don't need to worry about it. So that's the idea. So I'm just chatting some more waffle to Steve here. I would just play the clip, but as I say, the background noise is just horrendous. So we're just going back to a little bit more movement. I gave Steve a couple of little tips on just his handling, just to try and get Stanley in the position. So you see him just walking backwards and getting him back round. So we're not dragging the dog back into position. We're just moving our own body. So if you move backwards and then spin yourself back so that they're on the side that you want them on, then they're going to look at you when they're kind of walking backwards. When you're walking backwards and they're walking towards you, then you can spin and put them back into the position. We don't need to be yanking the dog, don't need to be yanking the lead. Like I say, even when I say a tight lead means change direction, when I say tight, I mean the lead's tight. I don't mean we're yanking the dog's neck, because we're just not doing that. So you see the treat position there is a little bit more behind him. So like I said before, progress isn't always perfect, and it's just kind of ironing out some of the little handling errors and the positional stuff, just so we can start working towards kind of the end goal, which is, of course, Stanley walking on the left with a loose lead, very much like he is right there. Offering loads of eye contact, and Steve does a whole length of the garden. This session was an hour.
Yes, good boy. Well done. Good boy.
He's had a slip lead,
Yeah.
so he's kind of had mixed messages. Most men wait till marriage before they get that many mixed messages. So you got to like, we're just trying to give him a clear message, and like try and make it simple as possible. And the simple thing is, if you walk nicely next to me, good things happen. If you pull in front of me, we're just going to change direction, so you're not going to get to that thing that you were so desperate to get to, and just build a habit of like, we're gonna walk. This is the speed we're going to walk, because I'm slow and you're fast, and you walk with me. He'll get it, and he did get it there. It's just practice. Practice in different environments. And like I say, if you do a lot in the garden, do that. Do your street walk and do that again. Doing the same thing, practice there. Once you've practiced that in about 3 or 4 different environments, you won't need to practice. Yeah, just do it.
Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy.